Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, we did get the final injury report. Kind of a weird little twist at the end, I suppose, although, I don't know, man. I guess you just come to expect it. But I want to go over the injury report and then kind of as a result of that start to look at the Seahawks. We'll look at their players, how much they matter within the roster, and then just, everybody else on top of it. Before we jump into that, though, couple little news and notesy things here. First of all, and I don't have a ton of context on this, but we talked about recently Randy Moss was going through some stuff, kind of talked about some potential things, whatever. And he did mention that he does have cancer. So I don't know what all that means. I don't know much about cancer in terms of, I know it's a pretty broad spectrum. And kind of like before, I don't want to over speculate, but obviously very unfortunate to hear. And obviously hope that he's doing all right and that he's going to be all right. We had a series of veterans that just decided they didn't want to play football anymore. The Dolphins and three-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. have mutually agreed to part ways. I just want to say I'm very proud of Packers fans because aside from some Packers fans saying no thank you, I don't think I've seen a single Packers fan say we should go get him. We got Lions, Bills, Chiefs, Eagles, Browns fans saying make it happen. Lions should pick him up. Chargers. I see one Packer fan, but he says Belichick's going to figure out a way to get him one more year of college eligibility. Ravens. A whole lot of you suck, go away. But it took a while. Took a long time to get to this point, but I think we have finally reached the point where Packer fans stop screaming we should go get him whenever Odell Beckham quits on his team or whatever the case may be. But then the funniest thing happened. In the midst of the absolute implosion and the 49ers did lose again, it is pretty funny. There's a whole lot of caught in, captured by what is the frickin' saying? Prisoner of the moment? Is that right? That's what the robot says. I'll go with that. There's a whole lot of that type of stuff going on. And you can see it very much in the 49ers. The 49ers were a team that were put together. They had the culture. They had the great GM. They had the great coach. Everything was great. The funny thing is, you want to know how I know that everybody's full of crap? Because nobody actually analyzes the people and what they're doing. They just look at the results and then just draw their conclusions. How do you know Kyle Shanahan's a good coach? How do you know they have a good GM? Because they're winning. That's it. That's the full thing. How do I know? Because when that exact same group starts losing, Kyle Shanahan needs to be fired. The organization needs to be tore down, rebuilt. The team, everybody needs to get thrown in the garbage can. It's like, what? If you would have asked somebody in September who the most brilliant coach in football is, Shanahan would get a lot of votes. Is that really not the case anymore? I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't really care. I love it. I know that it's probably just a handful of people that are 49ers fans that are throwing temper tantrums, similar to the Green Bay Packers, right? It's like we've had a lot of success, but no Super Bowls, and now I'm pissed. Granted, he's had a lot of, 50% of his seasons were, I don't know if it was sub 500 or missed the playoffs or what. It was pretty rough. Anyways, what I'm getting at is that on top of just the glory of the 49ers imploding, the frickin' it's one of the great things about the Green Bay Packers is that, teams have their moments. Just like the Lions right now are having their moments. The Vikings have had their moments. The Bears have had some moments. The 49ers had their moments. These teams, they come and they go. They come in, they talk a lot of trash, they flail around, they have a couple good seasons, and then they're gone. The Packers remain. They just stay up. That's what they do. Anyways, best part of the story, apparently, I'll be honest, I didn't watch the game. I should have. I should have. It's looked really boring. I was looking at the scores. I'm like, nah, I'm just going to stick to doing the podcast and not watching the game. Devondre Campbell, you may remember him. He was a Green Bay Packer for several years. Was actually quite good for at least one of them. Decided in the third quarter, didn't feel like playing anymore, and walked off the football field. Just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm leaving. And walked off. Now, as you know, some of us Packer fans tend to get a little bitter about people that leave. It's a flaw in us. We understand that. We get it. But it is quite funny, I got to be honest, when you've got a lot of people that talk trash about the Packers. And sometimes it's like, when enough people say it, maybe there's some truth. A lot of guys leaving, talking trash about the Packers, and it seems like the toxicity goes with them and not staying in Green Bay. That's one of the things that you notice, right? There's toxicity. What's going on? There's all these little problems. And then you got guys like Rodgers who leave, and the Jets look exactly like the Packers, and the Packers suddenly don't have a lot of the same problems. Devondre Campbell was a part of a group, and things were getting quite ugly with the Green Bay Packers for a while. Really a lot of tension between the group and with Joe Barry, and they didn't like each other, and all this stuff was going on. And it started to bleed into other guys like Jair, and Rasul seemed to be having an attitude issue or whatever. Packers did move on from Rasul. They never said it had anything to do with that, but I can't imagine that wasn't, making their decision a little easier. And I don't know that he had a huge attitude. It just seemed like there was a group of people that were generally unpleasant a lot of the time, and just seemed to have some kind of backhanded comments toward the team a lot. But nobody more than Devondre. Devondre was actually very much like a Za'Darius type of guy, which is another great example. Za'Darius goes around talking about how bad the team is, and the players all mistreated me, and everybody's awful. And he goes other places. He causes the same amount of problems. He's a great pass rusher, and nobody wants him. Why? Because he's the problem. So if you need a little bit of a refresher, he joined the Packers in 2021 after a season with the Arizona Cardinals, which was after 4 years with the Atlanta Falcons. In his first season, he had a breakout year. He got first-team All-Pro honors, became the first Green Bay Packers inside linebacker to receive that recognition since Ray Nitschke in 1966. We're not really known for our linebackers, apparently. He was a force on defense, recorded over 95 tackles, multiple interceptions in 2021 and 2022, a feat achieved by only 4 NFL players during that period. His overall PFF grade in 2021 was an 85, which was a career high for him. So it was one of the best linebacker performances the Packers have had since the 60s. It was certainly his best performance. It was great. Everything was great. However, Campbell's performance declined in the following seasons, and his PFF grade dropped to a 65 in his final season with the Packers. This decline coincided with growing dissatisfaction on Campbell's part. He later expressed his belief that the Packers coaching staff, quote, badly misused him during his 3 seasons with the team. He also criticized the Packers' handling of his release, stating that they didn't communicate with him about a potential pay cut before letting him go. Campbell's frustration with the Packers extended beyond his perceived misuse and lack of communication. He specifically mentioned losing respect for some coaches in Green Bay, although he didn't name anyone specifically. He also liked a post that described Green Bay as, quote, the worst team on how they treat players on their way out. A lot of players that leave have that sentiment. I'm sure it's not because they're bitter or anything. I'm sure that has nothing to do with it. Furthermore, Campbell expressed his belief that the Packers undervalued him, stating that they, quote, did all the dirty work and never got credit for it. He suggested that the Packers have been chasing players like him ever since they let him go. Adding to his frustration, Campbell also made comments about not playing through injuries anymore because the team uses it against them. This suggests a potential sense of distrust and disillusionment with the Packers organization. You might remember that, and I even sympathize with that sentiment a little bit, depending, I don't know the exact situation, but hypothetically, it makes a lot of sense. You're injured. The team asks you to please come back and play through injury. Would you be willing to? He plays injured, doesn't play very well, and then gets thrown under the bus for not performing well enough. I could see that being frustrating, if that were in fact the case. This wasn't the only place that this happened, though. When he was with the Falcons, he, after he left, he expressed gratitude to them for giving him opportunity to fulfill his NFL dreams and all that stuff. But he hinted at dissatisfaction and felt undervalued by the organization and believed that he and his fellow player, Brian Poole, didn't receive enough credit for their contributions. So he has a really bad habit of he had one good year. Every other year, he doesn't play well, and he blames everybody else for it. According to Campbell, essentially, he is a premier player, and just nobody knew how to harness his talents, except the one guy the 1 year. But then that guy forgot how to harness his talents, and then he fell off. Obviously, everybody is coming down on him, and the 49ers have already let him go, and I doubt he will ever be on an NFL team again because nobody wants that. Players across the league have completely lost respect for Devondre Campbell. Nobody's going to want to work with that guy, and no team is going to want to bring a guy on that quit on his team, just walked out like that. Richard Sherman says it's frustration, and you can kind of empathize with him to a degree, but you quit on your team. You can't do that in the National Football Leagues because he's a crybaby. He is a perpetual victim. Everything is everybody else's fault. He's not just mad at the situation. He's mad at the 49ers because they're not good enough. He's upset that they're losing again because obviously people just don't know what they're doing. And they certainly don't know how to harness his talents. In his world, he should be the top linebacker in football, on the best team in football, which is, I'm sure, why he went to the 49ers. He thought for sure that they were going to be a successful football. That blew up in his stupid face. And he's just mad at the whole world's incompetence, and he walked out on his team. Why? Because he has no respect for the team. Because they're bad, and they don't deserve his respect. Teammate, cornerback Charvarius Ward, a former Chiefs star, was particularly critical, saying he's a professional. He's been playing for a long time. If he didn't want to play, he shouldn't have dressed out. He could have told them that before the game. I feel like that was some selfish bleep that he did. It definitely hurt the team. Tight end George Kittle said, I've never been around anybody that's done that, and I hope I'm never around anyone that does that again. Ryan Clark on ESPN said it demonstrated a lack of football integrity and football character. So, it is interesting. A lot of people want to talk trash about the Packers organization as being some kind of a bad organization. Yet it seems like a lot of the times, a lot of people leave and it's just whatever. But I'm talking about guys that leave with a bad attitude and want to talk about the Packers. Very, very often, you see that toxicity goes with that player. If it was the Packers organization, people would leave and they would go to better situations, and that toxicity and everything else would still stay in the Green Bay Packers locker room. It doesn't. All the problems we had with Za'Darius left with Za'Darius. The problems we had with Rodgers left with Rodgers. The problems we had with Campbell left with Campbell. Sometimes you get people that are, a little screwy for one reason or another. I don't know what happened to Za'Darius. That was super weird. He was the nicest guy in the world. He just flipped. Campbell seemed fine, but you didn't really know too much about him. Rodgers, I think, is just an arrogance thing. He's the most powerful man in football. He's got all the money in the world. He can snap his fingers and everything just comes falling to their knees to serve and worship him. I'm sure that goes to somebody's head, especially when you're already a little arrogant. But suffice it to say, it was a beautiful thing. The 49ers got eliminated from the playoffs. Devondre Campbell, who had a lot of things to say about the Packers, walked off the field and basically ended his entire career by doing it. Beautiful, beautiful day. All right, why don't we take a break right here? We'll come back. We'll go over the injury report. We'll go over the Seattle Seahawks roster, and that'll probably do it for today. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, folks, so let's start with the big news. Jair Alexander seemed fine, full participant. Everything was great. And today it just turned out he didn't practice. And it's like, what the heck is that? And I'm like, well, hopefully we're just resting him. Nope, he's out. He's not playing. Head coach Matt LaFleur commented on it and said, just based on what I saw over the last couple of days, I didn't feel like he's ready to play. Now, that makes me a little bit nervous. I hate to go down some weird rabbit holes here. I probably shouldn't, but let's. This is a safe space, right? We can talk here. Can you tell me what that means? I mean, obviously, what is most likely and what came immediately to my mind, although it's very weird and I still can't quite wrap my head around it. Essentially, he watched him practice and he practiced in a way that gave them the impression that he was hurt, which really doesn't make any sense because he was practicing in full. He wasn't limited in any capacity. So if on that first day he was limping or something like that, why wouldn't you sit him down? So you're telling me you let him practice in full for 2 days, and then you went back and reviewed the tape for the first time, and you saw that he had serious injury issues, and you said, I'm not going to let you play? Not even game time decision, just you are not going to play. He didn't say he got injured during practice. He didn't say any of that. Based on what I saw over the last couple of days, I didn't feel like he's ready to play. You know what I mean? Like the description I gave and the words that Matt LaFleur said, I'm having a hard time getting them to. I would not use the words he used. It doesn't fit. The other way to look at this would be similar to what happened with Jordan, and more of a, he's healthy and he can play and he says he's okay, but he's not putting any weight on that leg, and so he can't step into his throws. And we all looked at it and it's like, you shouldn't have let him play. Maybe it has something more to do with that. He's got a knee injury. It has more to do with the fact that he's not trusting it and he doesn't really push off and he's not really doing, so they're worried that he's going to go out there and he's just not going to play very well, and something to that effect. That would fit. Based on what I saw, I didn't feel he's ready to play. That makes more sense because you're talking about his ability to play more so than availability to play. He didn't say, it just doesn't sound like he's saying he's hurt. So I guess what I'm hoping is that they're doing exactly what we wanted them to do with Jordan and didn't. We all said with Jordan, not until he is 100%, not 99.99999999999%, 100 exactly. And they didn't do that. They brought him back and he wasn't ready. I'm really hoping that's the situation. That it's not even necessarily a pain issue or anything, or maybe a slight pain, but he's like, no, I'm good. I can go through it. And they're like, I watched it. You're kind of whatever. Let's give it another week. Let's just give it a week. And I can respect that. I would love to have him against Seattle. They've got really good players, as has been talked about ad nauseum. Jaxon Smith-Njigba has been playing some really good football. Be nice to have him out there, although he's a slot guy, but still, whatever. I'm sure they'd match up once in a while. It would help. But if he is not 100%, then I don't really want him to play. I think I'll choose not to speculate beyond that, but suffice it to say, it's a very weird and unusual situation for a guy to be perfectly healthy. There's no mention of him re-injuring anything or injuring anything or anything. And at the end of all the practices, Matt LaFleur just says, we decided to not let him play. It's very weird. But just kind of puts us right back to square one where we were. I don't think a whole lot changes. Obviously there's a lot of frustration as usual. My opinion doesn't really change on that. I saw it again. I didn't really want to interact with it, but somebody said something to the effect of like, are you guys really not upset about this? And it's, in my head, I don't get what you're saying. Of course everybody's upset about it. What do you want to do about it though? What are you going to do? I don't know what to do. What is your point? What is it you want people to do? Should we burn down Green Bay? Should we go attack Jair? Should we just beat him up? Yes, upset, sucks. Well, we gotta find somebody. Yeah, I know. We gotta find corners. Which even if Jair was perfectly healthy, we'd still be looking for corners. So regardless, it doesn't change anything. Well, we gotta find 2 or 3 corners. Well, that's not how that works. You look for corners, and if you get 1, 2, or 3, great. Be fortunate if you be happy if you get 1. So nothing changes. Nothing. It's a simple matter of I wish he was healthy, but he's not. That sucks. You move on. I don't know what else to do about it. You're not upset about it? Yeah, I am. What? And I'm upset we don't have a, perfect season. I'm upset we lost to the Lions. I'm upset about a lot of things. What do you want me to do about it? It's like this, we shouldn't have to put up with this kind of a mentality. Like, what other choice do you have but to put up with it? So, anyways, beyond that, we already kind of knew this. Javon Bulger's going to be out for a while. Tight end Luke Musgrave, mentioned yesterday, will be out this week. Corey Ballantyne with his knee injury is officially questionable for Sunday's games. We will find out. Not the biggest deal in the world, but considering we're short, could probably use the depth. On the positive side, Romeo Doubs officially cleared concussion protocol, full participant in practice on Thursday and Friday, and is expected to play against Seattle. Big yay. In addition, Evan Williams also cleared concussion protocol, as anticipated to play on Sunday. And then Edgerrin Cooper, with his hamstring injury, upgraded to full participant in practice on Friday, does not carry a game-time status or designation, which means he's going to play. Real quick, before we go over to Seattle, too, there is an article that was put together. Might as well touch on that right now. Paul Brettel put it together. Opponents continuing to attack the Packers' pass defense over the middle. Put together quite a bit of stuff here, just kind of skimming through it real quick. The head coach and coordinator spoke today, so we got to hear from the defensive coordinator a little bit about this issue. First of all, he pointed out some statistics here. It says Tua attacked the middle of the field, 28 completions for 300 yards. Jared Goff completed 23 passes for 214 yards and 3 touchdowns in the middle of the field. There's a whole lot of hodgepodge word. They get super technical, the players and the coaches, but then they don't really say anything. Like, yeah, we got to, do the old curl, flat, dig, jump, post, skip, hop. You know what I mean? Like, you got to work on the old skibbity-doos and whatnot. And it's like, okay. Bottom line is, though, essentially what it sounds like from the defensive coordinator, although they don't want to outright say it, and even from the players, the execution hasn't really been where it's supposed to be. The linebackers, it sounds like, are being pretty heavily manipulated. That's part of what these offenses do is they try to stress your defense, especially your linebackers. I mean, play action passes, draw them up. You run the screens. They got to be lateral. They got to be able to get horizontal. They got to be able to get in all these different directions. You got to be able to react. It causes hesitation. And they're not dealing with it very well. Hafley did say, he thought that last week was better than 2 weeks ago, and he says he thinks that they have a better plan this week, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the main components, though, is Edgerrin Cooper. Now, this isn't guaranteed, but it certainly seems to be that part of the field has been decimated ever since Edgerrin Cooper has gone out. Edgerrin Cooper's got a little bit more speed than the other guys, 4.51 speed, versatility to drop back or blitz, giving flexibility to the defensive play calling. And then there's also the ripple effects. One of the things, too, that is worth noting is for all of us that like McDuffie, or for whatever you might like McDuffie about, it was never coverage. McDuffie was always kind of a downhill, tackling, run defender type of guy. And honestly, that's kind of Quay, too, at this point. People like his blitzing, and his run defense is kind of taking a step forward, and that's great. Coverage is a problem. Now, I don't know that Edgerrin Cooper is that guy, but the point is, having him back means we get to move McDuffie back where we like him. We get to put Quay where we like him. We get to put Edgerrin where we like him. And everybody gets to play a little bit better style of defense. Bottom line, get Isaiah McDuffie out of there. Move him. Now, it's entirely possible that Edgerrin Cooper just gets picked apart. But my hope is that, Quay's a pretty quick guy too. We got plenty of speed to cover space. We got multiple guys that are quite good at blitzing. Edgerrin and Quay are quite good at that. You got McDuffie and Quay that have really stepped up in terms of run defense. I'm genuinely hopeful that Edgerrin Cooper actually provides a really big boost to this defense. It may not, I don't know, but that those two things. Number one, our biggest issue being linebackers getting attacked in the middle of the field, and number two, Edgerrin Cooper coming back. I can't help but notice those two things existing at the same time. Anyways, moving on to the Seattle Seahawks, quite a few guys have been ruled out. Cornerback Trey Brown has been ruled out with the hamstring. Safety Jarek Reed, quadricep. Tight end Brady Russell, foot. Tackle Stone Forsythe, hand. Safety Kayvon Wallace, ankle. In addition, and I mentioned this is one of the bigger ones, running back Kenneth Walker is officially doubtful for the game. Doesn't mean he won't play, but he is doubtful to play. Cornerback Artie Burns also is doubtful to play with his toe injury. So more than likely we'll have Zach Charbonnet as the running back. He had a pretty good week last week, but just not having that rotation. Charbonnet now going on 2 weeks. It's easier when you're completely fresh and all that, but when you've been a full-time back now for 2, maybe even 3 weeks, especially against, and it feels weird to say, a pretty good run defense, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Seattle to keep their foot on the gas with the run game when you don't have your number one running back out there. As far as how important a lot of these guys are, tight end Brady Russell has not played a snap, so not super important. Stone Forsythe has not played since week 6, so that's not massive news. Artie Burns, who was doubtful for the game, he played in one game this year, and that was week 6. He was a first-round pick back in 2016. He is, much like Jair, has really not played. I mean, last time he played a full season was 2017. I don't know how much of that is to injury compared to just not playing well, but 300 snaps 2018, 67 in 2019, 254 with Chicago in 2021, 16 snaps in 2022, 200 snaps in 2023, and so far 14 this year. As for the rest of the guys, I can't really speak to how valuable they are, but I can tell you that none of them have really played in a long time. Kayvon Wallace, the safety, was their safety, or at least a rotational one, through week 9. He has not played since. You've got Trey Brown, who has not played since week 6, and you got Jarek Reed, who played in one game, and that was week 11. I'm guessing he came in to replace somebody. So, again, Kenneth Walker is the one that matters. Everybody else, it's sort of they are severely lacking in depth across the board. So if you see other guys go down on the team, that's when you start to go, okay, that now that tackle went down, not having Stone Forsythe might be a problem. You know what I mean? But the guys that they've been winning with the last couple of weeks, basically none of those guys are injured. But with that, why don't we go ahead and start digging into their team a little bit. Quarterback, as you know, is Geno Smith. He's had a bit of a resurgence ever since going to Seattle. Basically, his entire, I mean, it's a very much a Sam Darnold situation. I don't know that he ever had as bad of a reputation as Darnold, but he was not a good football player with the Jets. Again, Sam Darnold, right? Jets are just, if there's ever a really bad quarterback with the Jets, consider getting them. Not always the case, but we've got 2 recent examples here. But starting in 2021, he didn't play a ton. He had a really solid season, 74 grade. 2022, he stepped in to start, 79. 2023, 83 PFF grade. And so far this year, again, an 83. Wildly consistent football player. Not anything massively great, nothing terrible. His worst grade was a 63. His best was an 83. Just 70, 80, 70, 60, 70, 60, 60, 70, 70, 70, 70, 70, 70. So he's been even less volatile going down the stretch. And his second best and, I don't know, like 5th best games were the last 2 weeks. So been playing some pretty good football. Again, there's nothing where you look at it and go, he's the best. There's nothing really where you look at it and go, he's the worst. He very rarely has a game where he doesn't throw a touchdown. He also very rarely has a game where he throws more than 1 touchdown. It's been 1-1-1-1-1-1-2-0-3-0. Weird little patch there. And then back to 1-1-1-1. Actually, 1-1-1. I added one there. Interceptions are also rather high. He's got 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Not the greatest ratio in the world. However, he's 12 turnover-worthy plays. So similar to Jordan Love, he's just been rather unlucky with the interceptions. But bottom line is, if Geno Smith has a elite quarterback kind of a day, which we've seen a lot of, I mean, Caleb Williams had one of his best days. Jared Goff played incredible. It's not unusual to have quarterbacks against the Packers play really well. If he has a really, really good day, it's the first one he's had all year. If he has a terrible day, it's the first one he had all year. More than likely, you're going to get a solid, consistent football player that could use the game manager label again in the non-derogatory fashion. Good football player. As far as the passing attack, it's the same crew that we've known for a while. Tyler Lockett is still there at 32 years old. He and DK Metcalf now occupy the outside as Jaxon Smith-Njigba is their slot guy. Lockett is certainly regressing. This is his first kind of bad year. Since 2018, he's kind of iffy up until that point, 2015, 16, 17. Since 2018, it was 82, 82, 76, 81, 78, 78. This year so far, 67. He's had 3 games, above a 70. Not since week 7. Since week 7, 50, 60, 50, 50, 50, and last week 1 target, 0 receptions, 44 PFF grade. So I don't know if the old man's struggling a little bit late in the season, but I mean, he hasn't even had a game in the 60s since week 9. Lockett doesn't have a single game above 100 yards. He has 2 touchdowns the entire year. He hasn't had a game above 50 yards since week 9. He has 5 games above 50 yards the entire season. DK also is having a little bit of a down year for him. It's his worst year so far since his rookie season, which wasn't a bad season, obviously. But his rookie year was a 73. So far, he's at a 74.5. Hasn't been bad. It's nowhere near Tyler Lockett, but it just hasn't been great. He had 1 game that was an 81, week 7. Otherwise, it's been 60, 60, 70, 70, 50, 60, 60, 60, 70, 60. The 60s are high 60s, don't get me wrong, but that's what we're dealing with. He has 3 games above 100 yards. They were all 3 in succession, weeks 2, 3, and 4. He hasn't done it since. He did have 99 week 7. He's obviously a big play threat down the field. He's 27 years old. He's still relatively young, 6'3", 229, fast as all get out. I mean, he's a monster. But he just has not been as high of an impact player. He has 3 touchdowns only on the season. His lowest was 8. He did that 3 times. It does not look like he's going to hit 8 touchdowns. Watch him get 4 against us now. But he doesn't have a single game with more than 1 touchdown. And again, no games over 100 yards since week 4. His yards per route run are sitting at 1.97. It's actually not that uncharacteristic for him, but still, he's last year he was above 2, kind of a personal benchmark for me that he just is not he's not hitting. So, good player, not the scariest guy in the world like he has been in the past. But that brings us to Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and this is where things drastically change. Now, Jaxon Smith-Njigba did not have a very good rookie year. 600 yards, 63 grade, 64 receiving grade, 4 touchdowns. Not very good. It looked like he was going to have another bad year. He had a 54 grade to start and then an 80, but then it was 50, 60, 50, 50, 50. Like, it was just rough. Didn't do anything. I don't know what happened week 8, but something clicked for the young man. He had a 74 grade in that game. Then he had his first mega game, 12 targets, 7 receptions, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, 92 PFF grade, 92 receiving grade. He followed that up with 11 targets, 10 receptions, 110 yards. Again, almost a 90 grade. Then he was 6 for 6, 77 and a touchdown, 80 PFF grade. 4 for 4, 74, 73 grade. 5 for 5, 82 and a touchdown, 85 PFF grade, 89 receiving grade. So he went from hovering in the 50s to looking at his receiving grades. It was 76, 92, 87, 80, 75, and 89. I don't know that there's a better receiver since week 8. I would honestly be a little surprised if there has been. I don't know what they're doing over there with Mr. Njigba in the slot, but they figured something out, and it is working tremendously. If we just look at his yards per route run, prior to, it was 0.76, 2.66, 1, 0.89, 0.69, 104, 0.3. Since week 8, when he broke out, 2.3, 4.3, 3.1, 2.4, 2.6, and 2.8. He's just been a freaking monster. Now, that does scare me a little bit because we don't really have an answer in the slot. We certainly don't have an answer in the middle of the field, which I'm sure he's going to be attacking quite a bit. So this is going to be our biggest test. You still got to worry about Lockett. You still got to worry about Charbonnet. You still got to worry about DK for sure. This guy is having himself a heck of a time. They have figured out a way to utilize him. He has hit his stride. This is the problem. This is the guy. Beyond that, they have tight end Noah Fant. He's been there for a little. Actually, he was with Denver at first, but he's been there for a little while now. Never been a super great guy. He's at 329 yards, 0 touchdowns, 63 PFF grade. I'm not going to say we don't have to worry about him because then he's going to have his first 100-yard game probably of his career. So I'm just not going to say anything other than he's not Travis Kelce. Charbonnet also was pretty involved in the pass game. Last week, he was 7 for 7 for 59 yards and had a 74 receiving grade. That's pretty uncharacteristic for him, but it happened, and it's worth noting. So it kind of sucks that out of nowhere, it's like, wait, we have to focus on this now? Like, what the heck? And he was good at it. I mean, he's got a 67 receiving grade. He had a 74 in that game. 7 targets was his high, 7 receptions was his high, 59 yards was his high. So uncharacteristic, but it's a thing. Why don't we take a break here? We'll come back. We got running backs, the run game, offensive line, and then defense. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so first off, it should be mentioned that there is the number 2 back, and that is Kenny McIntosh. He was a 7th-round pick in 2023 out of Georgia. He had, last week, 8 snaps, 7 attempts, 38 yards, which is 5.4 yards per attempt. He is 6 foot 204, 4.62 speed, so that is going to be their backup. But the main guy is going to be Mr. Zach Charbonnet. He's 20, not quite 24 years old yet. He is 6 foot, 214 pounds, 4.53 speed. He was a 2nd-round pick out of UCLA in 2023. He has 97 carries for 400 yards, which is 4.1 yards per attempt. He has 7 touchdowns, 0 fumbles, 73 grade, 72 rushing grade. Now, with that said, a lot of this is based on a handful of games. His 73 grade, if we look at it, rounding, it's 50-50, 70-80, 60-50, 50-60, 60-50, 60-60, 80. If you had to guess whether his game was going to grade out in the 50s or 60s or 70s and 80s, statistically, you're way more probable to get the 50s and 60s from him. Even his yards per attempt, he had weeks 3, 4, and 5. It was 5, 7, and 5 yards per attempt. He had 7 yards per attempt in week 13 and 6.1 in week 14. Otherwise, it was 1, 2, 4, 2, 1, 4, 0.8, 3.7. So a handful of pretty big games have made him, his sort of averages look a lot better than I think his game-to-game has been. So the point is, we need to make him look like week 1 Zach Charbonnet, 11 snaps, 8 attempts, 12 yards, 1.5 yards per attempt, 51.3 PFF grade, 48 rushing grade. That's the goal. It is also worth noting Jaxon Smith-Njigba has begun sort of his end-around journey. His entire 2023 season, he had 0 carries. All the way through week 9, 0 carries. In his last 4 games, he has 3. He had 1 against San Francisco, 1 against the Jets, and 1 against Arizona. He hasn't been wildly successful with it. 1 for 8, 1 for 5, and 1 for 4 is all he's gotten. But, again, they're putting crap on tape that now you got to kind of pay attention to. All right, offensive line now. Seattle has been, for all of eternity, pretty notorious for not having a very good offensive line. That hasn't necessarily changed. It's a little surprising when you look at how successful their running backs have been, how successful their quarterback has been, and whatnot. But if we're going to lean into the grades and everything, Charles Cross, their left tackle, is quite talented. He has an 81 pass blocking grade, 76 run blocking grade. He has played almost every single snap at left tackle. He's given up 5 sacks, 4 hits, 28 hurries. It is starting to get a little iffy as we go along. By the way, he's a first-round pick in 2022. He's only 24 years old. So there's that. This is also a big breakout game or year for him. His first 2 years were really not very impressive. 63 grade, 67 grade, and then 82 this year. Sometimes that happens, man. Got to be patient. With that said, he only gave up 1 sack through week 9. He's given up 4 since then, 4 in his last 4 games. It's not huge. His pass blocking grade really hasn't suffered as a result, but it's a thing. But solid pass blocker, really solid run blocker, just a good football player. That's about it, though. At left guard, they have Laken Tomlinson. Laken Tomlinson is fine. He's been around for a while. He is, how old is Laken Tomlinson now? He's 30, almost 33 years old. Dude's been around the block. He had 2 good years with San Francisco. That's about it. As of right now, he's sitting at a 67 pass blocking grade, 61 run blocking. That's not bad. There's nothing bad about it, but it's not anything I'm scared of. At center, pretty weird situation. They had a guy, Connor Williams. Connor Williams spent several years with Dallas, 5 years there, 2 years at Miami, and then he went to Seattle. He was having an okay year, 62 pass blocking grade, 71 run blocking. He was always a very good run blocker. After week 9, he retired. Again, this is the year of like guys just walking off the NFL. He cited personal reasons, whatever that may be. He left. In his place was Olusegun Oluwatimi. I don't know, man. 2023 fifth-round pick out of Michigan. He's played the last 4 games there. Not the greatest. 61 run blocking, 59 pass blocking. Again, not terrible. I think a lot of the reason the run blocking seems better is his first time against San Francisco had an 87 grade. Since then it was 58, 48, 53. Pass blocking, he has not given up any sacks or hits for that matter, but he's given up 4 hurries in 4 games, which seems pretty good, but PFF is not impressed by him, so there you go. Although centers don't usually give up a ton anyways. So a little bit of a downgrade there. At right guard, they've had 3 different guys play right guard. Anthony Bradford, Christian Haynes, and Satawa Laumea. There's been a good amount of turnover, and it's all been very recent. So Anthony Bradford was the right guard. He got an ankle injury week 12 against the Cardinals and was placed on IR. Haynes was a guy that was initially the backup. He stepped in during that injury against Arizona. He played 60 snaps, but ultimately they decided that they didn't want to start him, so he is not the guy. So they decided that they're going to go with the other guy, Laumea. Kind of an interesting decision. They obviously see something in the guy. He's a rookie, 6th-round pick out of Utah. They put him in week 13. It was his first time. They said, "You're the starter now. Congratulations." He got a 29 PFF grade, 37 run blocking, 31 pass blocking. Only gave up 2 hurries, but it was absolutely brutal. Week 14, he took a big step forward, but still not great. 55 overall, 53 run blocking, 61 pass blocking. So he's kind of in the same category, assuming he stays there as everybody else. I can't imagine he takes a big jump and becomes a great player. Hopefully he regresses back to what he was with the Jets. I don't know, again, what they saw in him, but they see something, so we'll see how that goes. And then finally at right tackle, this is not it's not really any different. Lots of different people. You've got Charles Cross, played 2 snaps. George Fant played 30. Mike Jarrell played 190. Abraham Lucas played 232. And Stone Forsythe played 413 snaps at right tackle. Lot of rotation there. As I already mentioned, Stone Forsythe, who has played the most snaps at right tackle, is not going to be playing in this game. But Cross, as we know, is the left tackle, so that's where he's playing. Fant is on IR. Forsythe is injured. And so essentially you have Abraham Lucas with Mike Jarrell as the backup right now. Abraham Lucas, honestly, is probably the best of the group anyways. He has a 65 pass blocking grade and a 51 run blocking grade, and that's about as good as it gets. Forsythe had a 41 pass blocking grade, and if anything were to happen to Lucas, Mike Jarrell, 49 pass blocking grade. So Lucas so far has only played in 4 games, 2 sacks, 1 hit, 6 hurries given up so far this season. And even that, he had a solid grade against San Francisco, which is kind of elevating his grade. If you look at the last 3, it was 48, 63, and 40 as overall grades. And finally, that brings us to their defense. We'll just kind of rip through these pretty quick here. So on the defensive line, top dog is Leonard Williams. We talked about him as possibly having some injury issues. Looks like he's going to be okay. He's a good football player. He's actually having arguably the best season as far as his overall grade. It's been pretty inconsistent, though. He had 2 really good games against Arizona and the Jets, which obviously was very recently, weeks 12 and 13. But he has an 85 overall grade, 75 run defense, 70 pass rush, 40 pressures, and 7 sacks on 346 attempts. Arizona, he had 0. But the previous 2 games, he had 4 against the Jets and 7, talking pressures, against Arizona. He is 30 years old, so kind of hoping he doesn't have much left in the tank. Jaron Reed is the other guy, longtime Seattle football player. He actually played for Green Bay for a little while. He went to Kansas City, then Green Bay, and then back to Seattle. Basically the same guy, but with some flashes. 32 years old. Actually had a really good stretch from week 2 to week 6, and then fell back off and then blew up last week against Arizona. But he's got 68 grade, 59 run defense, 69 pass rush, 34 pressures, 2 sacks on 310 attempts. And then their third defensive tackle is Byron Murphy. He's a first-round pick this year. Hasn't been as advertised up to this point out of Texas. 59 overall, 53 run defense, 66 pass rush, 15 pressures, 1 sack on 191 attempts. So a lot of potential in there, but just hasn't really come to fruition. Off the edge, you've got Derek Hall, Draymond Jones, Boye Mafe. Derek Hall, 24 years old, second-round pick last year, 63 grade. He's really just has not had any good games since week 7. 54 run defense, 67 pass rush, 36 pressures, 6 sacks on 308 attempts. The stats are not the worst, but he just has not been a very good football player. You've got Draymond Jones, which is a very weird thing because I'm positive Draymond Jones was an interior guy, but I guess he's on the edge now. And it's not going well. 49.7 grade, 39.8 run defense, 64 pass rush. Stats are there, 38 pressures on 302 attempts, but just 3 sacks. And again, the grades are terrible at 28 years old. And then Boye Mafe, 71 overall, 77 run defense, 62 pass rush, 36 pressures, 5 sacks on 270 attempts. So they have no issues getting pressures, that's for sure. They've been able to either scheme them up or something. But the grades are just not fantastic for the guys, interior or exterior, really, with the exception of Leonard Williams. Linebackers very weird. They had 2 starting linebackers to start the season. Both of them ended up on new teams. Now they have Ernest Jones and Tyrese Knight. And Ernest Jones played for Tennessee earlier this season. So very, very weird situation here. But Ernest Jones, who also has been struggling with some injuries, he 62 overall, 65 run defense, 60 coverage. He did have 1 good game against LA, otherwise just not very good. And then Tyrese Knight, he's a 4th-round pick this year. Not terrible, 70 overall, 71 run defense, 62.6 in coverage. Then you got the corners. These guys are pretty well known at this point. Devin Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen. Devin Witherspoon, 24 years old, 1st-round pick, number 5 overall last year in 2023. Had a very, very good rookie year. Kind of taken a bit of a step back this year, but still 73 overall, 90 run defense. Very, very physical football player, even at 5'11", 181, which maybe is going to be his downfall. He's going to have that Jair syndrome. He starts smashing into people that hard at that size. I don't know how much you're going to hold up. But anyways, 66 coverage, down from 80 last year. It's a pretty big difference. Still, solid enough football player. Hasn't had really a bad game since week 8. Only had about 2 or 3 of them under a 60. So that's not going to be the easiest of tasks. And then Tariq Woolen on the other side, also, again, he was a 5th-round pick. Good-ish. He really blew up as a rookie, but, it was kind of an iffy thing. 69 grade as a rookie, then 67 and 69 again this year. 69.9, 77 run defense, and 67 coverage so far. So both of these guys are good, not great. It's not a terrible situation to be in. They're better than probably any of the guys that we have outside of Jair, who's not playing. And then in the, I don't know if this is a slot. I'm presumably in the slot. Maybe they mix it up enough. I don't really know. It doesn't say he is. But Josh Joby is the other guy. Spent his first 2 years in Philadelphia. Now he's with Seattle. Has been playing since week 7, ever since, the other corner that I mentioned, was out. He's not very good. 50 PFF grade, 47 coverage grade. So I don't know how their rotation works with slot and everything else, but when he's on the field, it's a good thing. Finally, safety. You've got Julian Love and Kobe Bryant, believe it or not. Julian Love, 26 years old, 4th-round pick in 2019 out of Notre Dame. Having his first highly graded season, 80 overall grade, however, very inconsistent. He had a 93 grade week 1, 80 grade week 7, and 86 week 13. He doesn't have really any other good games outside of that. Still, 80 overall, 77.8 coverage grade. I wouldn't say he doesn't have any bad games because he does, but his last 3 weeks have been pretty stout. He has 4 touchdowns given up, 2 interceptions, 5 pass breakups so far this season. Kobe Bryant, 76 grade, kind of came out of nowhere. He's a 4th-round pick in 2022. Was terrible his last 2 years. Much more consistent. He's actually been quite good since basically week 6. 76 overall, 74 coverage grade. consistent in terms of 60s to 70s. He's given up 12 passes this year, 147 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 3 pass breakups. 2 of those interceptions came in the last 3 weeks. So there you go. That is the Seattle Seahawks. You can see the recipe for success. You can also see the fact that they're probably not an elite team, but they're certainly a good enough team to put a hurting on you if you're not prepared for it. So Packers got a long road ahead of them. They got to go all the way out to Seattle. We know how they struggle on the road typically, especially on long trips. So it's going to be a test, man. But I'm going to leave it at that. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.